Dangerous Glasgow enforcer, Billy McPhee was a feared man. He was strong, pitiless and barefaced, and he was shameless in any crime that he committed, so it was no surprise that he had a long list of enemies. And when mcGraws lieutenant had lost his life after being bladed to death in front of families as he drank in a packed pub with a mate, again it was no surprise, nobody was shocked. At the time, crime boss mcGraws was nicknamed the licensee among fellow criminals. With an alleged amassed fortune of over £30 million, Tam had laundered the money into ice cream vans, taxis, pubs, security firms, and property, and Billy, being a detached psychopath, was one of the men used to protect Tam's criminal empire. That included multiple kilos of dr and also guns. Now, Billy McPhee was feared, as I said, and he was a respected enforcer and authoritarian figure. Now, Billy's brutal M was one of 5 that took place over a period of just 48 hours. This showcased to the wider world just how dangerous and merciless the Scotland criminal world really was. On Saturday, 8th of March, Billy McPhee, who was from Barlanark, had been in the Springcroft tavern pub and restaurant in bailieston, Glasgow. Despite multiple attempts on a Scottish gangster's life, including an incident where a hitman tried to shoot Billy in the face just 4 months earlier, a then 38-year-old Billy McPhee had been outside a social club in Glasgow, East End, when a GUN man had pulled his arm up and then pointed a flare GUN in Billy's face before pressing the trigger on November 2008. And earlier the same year, Billy had been implicated in at least 2 incidences of other well-known gangsters. That included T.C. Campbell and James Jamber McLean. Now, Billy was still accessible, and he believed that he was a man with 9 lives, stronger and a person who had more heart than others, even though he knew there was a very real threat and promised to end his life. Now, while Billy was watching the Scotland vs Wales rugby match, Billy was said to have been in a jubilant mood, laughing and joking with a mate at around roughly 5 p.m. The unnamed mate had gone to the toilet 20 minutes into the rugby match. While Billy was alone, Mum's dad, staff heard a commotion and the sound of glass breaking and drink spilling. A man who was wearing a grey hoodie and jeans had approached Billy, their face not concealed at all, apparently not concerned with a disguise. Now, the person responsible had pulled out a blade in front of roughly 35 people inside the Springcroft pub and then launched himself at Billy McPhee. The hitman had jabbed and prodded and poked and swiped at Billy again and again and again, blading him. Now, some people were stunned in stunned silence. Some people screamed, some people ran for cover. Now, it was reported that the Gangland enforcer had been bladed over 20 times. Target area, the back, stomach, neck, face, head. Now, after the act, the hitman had then run out of the pub, moving the few people out of his way as he ran out of the exit and turned towards Easter House. A witness who went over to Billy, who was one of 2 women, attempted to give first aid. Now, Billy was in such a state that he was unable to speak, and his mate who had returned had been stunned when he arrived back from the toilet. Again, target area being the neck. Now, police were called to the scene along with emergency crew. While paramedics battled to patch Billy up, a woman who claimed to be his sister had rushed to the scene and tried to get past diners whom were being interviewed by Strathclyde police. The hysterical woman had to be ushered back and consoled as she crumbled to the ground. Billy McPhee was rushed to Glasgow's Royal Infirmary, but he was pronounced dead a short time later. Now, being a huge figure in the East End, speculation ran rampant. Everybody was making up stories as to how this had happened. Some people questioned who was brave enough or sadistic enough or crazy enough to K Billy McPhee in such a public environment which was full of diners, men, women and children, families crying with grief and of course CCTV. These people were going to be witnesses whether they liked it or not. Now, one rumour was that mcGraws had his own lieutenant Cade over a drug dispute. Another rumour was the notorious Paul Ferris was responsible for the M, as he had already been implicated in other M's previously. However, crime journalist Reg McPhee had told the BBC that this M was not the conclusion of a Class A dispute or a scrap over vital territory in the East End and Glasgow. Reg McPhee says that Billy McPhee was an angry and violent man and sadistic man who had been taking liberties and causing havoc in the East End of Glasgow for years. What happened is that a group of street players in the East End, aged about 19 and 20, have decided to take McPhee out. Reg McPhee went on to say that the men responsible for the public K went by the name the East End Crew, and it was alleged that the up-and-coming and dangerous gang had been responsible for another high-profile M, Tam mcGraws' associate Gordon Ross, who had been bladed after being lured from a pub in Shettleston. Again, Billy McPhee had been set up and then bladed, struck in the face, head, chest, back, and neck, anywhere between 23 to 25 times, and then left in a pool of red, where mums, dads, and children had witnessed the carnage and the destruction. And to top it all off, the hitman was able to waltz out of the establishment without being caught. Every mechanical action was deliberate and purposeful, meant to K, and again this had to be planned, it was not a spontaneous act. Now due to the crime, people were reluctant to talk to the police, and for good reason, and the investigation stalled due to the wall of silence. Now normal everyday civilised people refused to get tangled up in the dr and guns and ice cream vans incidents. To go against the likes of Tam mcGraw or Billy Ferris was akin to asking to be wiped off the face of the planet. The M of Billy McPhee was such high profile that following the incident, First Minister Jack McConnell says that more needed to be done to challenge the culture, which can lead to an M. He also went on to say that the fact that 5 people had been M'd in a span of a weekend, just 48 hours, was alarming but thankfully not typical, which was kind of a fib. After all, 1 man had died and a second was seriously injured in an incident in Barlanark at about 3:25 AM on a Sunday. The pair, who had been aged 33 years old, had been ambushed by another man on the landing of a close in Burnley Road. John Hamilton from Barlanark died at the scene, and the other man was said to have been in stable condition in Glasgow's Royal Infirmary. Police also in Greenock launched an M inquiry after Robert Devine was found dead in his home in Bulvery Street, Port Glasgow, at around 7:20 AM on that Saturday. Now Mr Devine, who was also known as Ben, was last seen at 6:30 PM previous day by the neighbour, and in the early hours of the same Saturday a 19-year-old had died following what police believed was an unprovoked ambush in the Shettleston area of Glasgow. However, police were quick to say that these incidences were not linked to the M of Billy McPhee. Stay safe.